The Boston Bruins look to get back on track after a disappointing year last season. Ian McLaren is here of Locked On Bruins to talk about the offseason and a look ahead at 2025-2026. All that and more next on today's Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Bruins, Ian McLaren. And Ian, it's been an interesting offseason for the Bruins, a disappointing year last year. Out of all the moves they made this offseason, which one to you made the most impact?
I mean, I'd probably look off the ice, actually, and go with new head coach Marco Sturm. I think that is going to be huge for this team. A big reason why they struggled last year was kind of the transition from Jim Montgomery to Joe Sacco. Nobody, I don't think, really felt like Sacco was going to be a long-term solution, and to bring a guy who's familiar with Boston culture, what it takes to win with the Bruins, and kind of the pressure that comes with being a Bruins head coach, not to mention the track record he has kind of developing young players and working with some vets along the way. I think that will be the biggest addition, really, because when it came to July 1st, the Bruins kind of had a disappointing impact in free agency. So the hope is that Sturm will be able to kind of bring this core together and fit in those pieces that they brought in, as well as some younger guys into the mix.
How do you think his coaching style will be different?
I don't expect it to be entirely different. I do think that he will still have kind of the mandate, and he's well suited for this too. You saw it back when he was a player. He had some offensive flair to his game, but he was also physical at times, defensively responsible. That's as long as Cam Neely and Don Sweeney are in charge, that's going to be the mandate for any Bruins team, is to be, a 200-foot squad playing, the forwards playing defensively responsible, the defense kind of getting into the rush a little bit, but defense first. And that's kind of what this team needs, because they're going to struggle to score, I would think. And Sturm, I think, will be, again, going back to his playing days, like they're going to preach aggressive forechecking, but also defensive responsibility. And it's not altogether different from what you saw from Joe Sacco. Maybe Jim Montgomery was a bit more offensively inclined, but it really harkens back to Bruce Cassidy's system as well. That's how he's found success in Vegas, and that's the kind of style I think the Bruins are going to play once again under Marco Sturm.
Talk to me about the addition of Victor Arvidsson. Where does he fit in, and what does he mean to this team this year?
I mean, yeah, he's their biggest offensive weapon that they added in the offseason. I think I was reminded of this a couple of months ago when I was talking to Casey Hudson from Ness, and she mentioned, of course, that Arvidsson has some ties with the Bruins in terms of his days back with Nashville. He played with Tanner Jeannot, who was also signed. He's got history in LA, so he's familiar with Marco Sturm. So I think they targeted him specifically for some of those connections, but also to kind of ride on the second line right wing spot to kind of supplement the scoring that David Pastrnak is going to bring on the first line. I think he's going to start on the second line alongside Pavel Zacha and Casey Middlestat, who the Bruins, if they keep both of those guys to start the season, are expecting to be big time producers, or not, maybe not big time, but at least average producers for a second line. And Arvidsson, yeah, if he's healthy, he should be able to contribute at least a 20-goal season, and that would really help, offset some of the losses they had at the trade deadline last season and on that second line, which, Brad Marchand was a feature on last season as well.
What are your biggest concerns heading into this season?
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot on Locked On Boston Bruins. My biggest concern is the scoring. You have, David Pastrnak, who just continues to produce at elite levels, despite it kind of being a one-man show. There was only a 10-goal difference between him and Morgan Geekie last year, but there was a 51-point difference altogether between first and second in scoring on the Bruins. So they're going to need Morgan Geekie to somehow sustain that scoring, even though he had like a near 20% shooting percentage last year. And they're going to need some other guys to step up, like an Arvidsson, like a Middlestat, and the guys that they signed otherwise on July 1, like Tanner Jeannot, Sean Corrali, Mikey Estimont. I don't think those guys are going to really light the lamp all that much. So hopefully some younger guys like a Fraser Minton or Matt Poitras, Fabian Lysell, even if he's able to crack the lineup finally, they're going to need those guys to score. But that's kind of why they're going to be a defense first team, is because they're going to be grinding out a lot of 2-1, 3-2 games, I'm pretty sure, this season.
How are you with the state of goaltending at this point, both starting and backup?
Yeah, the backup goaltending is a bit of a question mark heading into the season because they have 3 goalies signed, including Joonas Korpisalo and Michael DiPietro. I'm more inclined to roll with DiPietro because he's younger and cheaper, and he was just the AHL goalie of the year. Maybe that will have to mean Joonas Korpisalo is waived to begin the season, because if you put DiPietro on waivers, he's going to get claimed. As for Swayman, he's going to be called upon to play 55, 60 games. And I know he had a terrible season last year, and that was the result of many things. The elongated contract stalemate, missing training camp, being without his his best friend in Linus Ullmark. And I think he can handle the heavy workload. The big impact, I think, will be having Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm healthy for the season. I don't care what team you're on. If you lose guys of that caliber, your defense is going to struggle. The goaltending is going to suffer. And Swayman was particularly bad on the penalty kill. His save percentage on the penalty kill was near the bottom of starters in the NHL. So if they can kill some more penalties and shore up the defense in front of him, which should happen with the return of McAvoy and Lindholm, I think you'll see him maybe not get back to his career average of .912 save percentage, but at least, above 900 this year, which would be a big help for the Bruins for sure.
So where is this team as we head into 2025, 2026? It's a tough division, coming off a non-playoff season. What are reasonable expectations?
I mean, I think at best, this team is a bubble wildcard team. You look at, I always try to think about playoff projections, and you wonder, okay, of the 8 teams that made it last year, who's going to drop out? And you look at the Eastern Conference teams, none of them really got weakened to the point where you think that might happen. I think Montreal is going to continue to grow. They added Noah Dobson, as you know, from the Islanders. Maybe the Senators take a bit of a step back, but they're still young, upcoming. Leafs lost Mitch Marner, but I don't think that's enough to make them a non-playoff team. And then, of course, the Florida teams. So that was 5 teams from the Atlantic that made the playoffs last year. There's still 3 pretty good teams in the Metro in Washington, Carolina, New Jersey. One of those other teams, the Rangers, can they bounce back? So I think the Bruins will be in, hopefully, a bubble team come the Olympic break. And that will kind of decide whether or not they choose to go the same route as last season, where they sell off some pieces, try to put themselves in a position maybe to draft Gavin McKenna add him with James Higgins, and suddenly the future's looking pretty bright, or at least a high draft pick. So they're kind of stuck in that limbo situation. They could be good enough to squeak into the playoffs if everything goes right, but they also could very much be in a position to sell at the deadline again and just add some more prospects in this retool, which would be, a bit of a bummer to waste another prime season for David Pastrnak. But hopefully they're well positioned in like 1, 2, 3 years so that they can contend again with him still going strong.
All right, Ian, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, Locked On Boston Bruins, available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me at Ian C. McLaren.
All right, Ian, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, Gil. Always a pleasure.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than the energy of tailgates and being in the stands with your fellow fans. The only downside, trying to get tickets, endless queues, hidden fees, and prices that jump at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.